Hello, everyone. This is episode 57 of the Justin Files podcast, and laptops cannot stop us from recording today.
Freaking Microsoft.
Yeah, because we decided we're going to talk about the people on the naughty list, and apparently Microsoft is one of them.
Right. They're like the head evil corporation, right? So
what? Are you saying Microsoft is E Corp? Because nobody else watches Mr. Robot?
We wouldn't be here without them, but holy crap, did they delay today's recording? So
yeah. Okay, and we're going to cuss because now we're all angry at Microsoft, and we're also going to spoil anything because we're talking about all sorts of evil people from various points of the game, or Dresden stuff, and
I mean, in general, this is a full spoiler podcast, so
just wanted to remind people because. Okay, we've got some news, and Justin is our news anchor. Have at it.
So, namely, we have news for the first time in since September, I think. So, from his website, yeah, September 20th. So it was almost 3 full months of nothing, and finally they are announcing the pre-order for briefcases, including you can see the cover. So if you want to see what presumably his new Demon Reach carved staff looks like, that's what everybody was talking about online. And then there are some 2018 showing signings that he's doing. So he's going to be in Detroit on January 18th through the 21st. Then he's going to be in Colorado Springs, Colorado, January 31st through the 3rd. Not that we have anybody here who, might be interested in that. So, and then apparently he's going out to Florida towards the end of February, so the 23rd through the 26th, back to Colorado Springs in April, 27th and 29th, and then Seattle, Washington, March 1st through the 4th. Hey, that's my birthday. That's cool. So I totally got to go out to Seattle because I haven't seen him, enough. But yeah, so he's got his early convention thing going on, which is great. And I mean, hopefully by then he'll have everything into the publishers, right? So it's all hype train for Here It Comes in June, and was it August, September, something like that for...
Yeah, so he was hoping that after Briefcases is out, about 8 weeks after is when hopefully we have peace talks.
For the love of God, give me peace talks.
And
for Christmas, please.
Right. June 5th. So yeah, so June 5th is when Briefcases comes out, and then theoretically Peace Talks if that's 8 weeks after. So,
August.
So yeah, August. So, hooray!
Oh, I hope so.
Then you'll have something to keep you warm through the winter. I don't know. It just yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just really need me some new Dresden in my life.
Oh, no kidding, man. It's been nice to reconnect with some of the books. P.S. Not that I'm wearing appropriate attire today, but Poca will never die, which is
didn't plan that at all. No, sir.
Nope. And I just finished my reread for Deadbeat, which is also good for today. So
I'm actually in the middle of and I want to talk with director Alex about that after. But I started the Stormlight Archives. I'm like halfway through the first one.
Nice.
Okay. We'll have to get to Sanderson after, because if we start that, we'll never get off.
He's saying you're having trouble letting go of your Sanderson bashing train?
A little bit. I mean, it's not all bashing, but seriously, that's what high fantasy is for.
Pronouns! Damn it.
Okay, but this time, like I mentioned earlier, we're talking about people on the naughty list, and we don't know all the things that they've done, but I assume that Saint Nicodemus might know what they all did with the help of Andurio. I'm sorry, that was a joke. I just couldn't pass that for.
Maybe someday. So
no bueno.
Nick is making a list. He's checking it twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
But
you go on the naughty list. You go on the naughty list for that one.
How can I be on the naughty list? I'm wearing a llama sweater.
Llama
sweater. So is it a llama sweater because it's got llamas on it, or because it's
got a big white llama?
The llama face, man.
Well, yeah. But is it also made out of llama? Because
I don't think so. I wish.
Is it politically correct source llama then? I don't know what that would mean, but that sounds like a thing people do.
Right, or organically free-range llamas.
Organically free-range llama wool.
I'll have to find llama wool at some point. But our first one on the list is Justin. You're on the naughty list.
I'm totally an asshole and on the naughty list, so yeah.
Wrong Justin, though, I should clarify. Justin DuMorne.
Right. Yeah, of course we were talking about not me.
Justin DuMorne. Not
so
Justin the other Justin.
That's what happens when a Danish person tries to say an American man's French name.
Right. Yes. Stop. Okay, so DuMorne. So DuMorne is like, the original evil wizard bad guy for the Dresden Files, right? Because, he adopted Harry, orphan Harry and orphan Elaine, and he made them have a Merry Christmas and then shat all over it and, all that fun stuff. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
So, I mean, how far do we want to go into this, right? Because the earliest exploits we know is that he was a warden during the, final nail in the coffin for Kemmler. So presumably he's been a warden at least since the 60s, which is kind of interesting because I never stopped to think how old he actually is, because that would put him like Morgan's age, probably, right? Like,
yeah, I assumed he was around Morgan's age.
I guess not Morgan's age, because we know Morgan is the late 1800s. So he might be a little bit younger, but still, I mean, presumably that puts him in his 70s, right? So we say 40 years since Kemmler, at least, and he had to have at least been an adult.
On the physicality of wizards, like, for example, Nietzsche's like pretty old, but he's pretty spry still. Do they, like, so even if he would be 70, 80 years old, would he then maybe look 40-ish?
From Word of Jim, they hit 50 and they stop aging. Okay. So they always look 50-ish.
Right. Okay. So he was, like a young 50, probably, because he was only 70. So, whatever ratio you want to take, he's probably aging a whole lot slower. So he was still, oldish, but in this day and age, like, the 50s aren't like what they used to be. So young and spry, and then got his ass kicked by an upstart wizard, which speculation abounds, right? Like, did he do it on his own? Did he fake his death? Did he whatever? So I want to clarify here that we're going with the Word of Jim that he is dead, D-E-D, dead, right? But with the extra caveat, because everyone's like, but that's not the same thing, and we didn't see a body, and so forth and so on. But he makes the caveat that he is as dead as he can get in the Dresden Files, which is also an interesting kind of wordplay. But I'd say he's fucking dead.
It's so typical Jim. Either Jim is just fucking with us by being a little dubious, or he's being dubious because he has to be, because he's not actually dead.
But because he's a fairy and we can't trust anything he says. But like, there's like on the spectrum of dead.
Is Jim Winter or Summercourt?
Oh, he's Winter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can write maps so well.
Right.
He knows her.
I mean, granted, Summer isn't all Disney princesses and shit, but I'd say Winter.
Well, if we have a spectrum of dead people, there's, like, say Mavra has to show up at some point. But then, for example, I want to think of Deidre in Skin Game. She dies. You see her ghost.
Right.
And then presumably her ghost is in Hades. How dead is that?
Right. So, I mean, the joke is, like, on a scale of Aurora to, like Dresden, I guess, like, how dead are we talking? Because Dresden didn't die. He was mostly dead, which was enough for a death curse, mind you. But yet, and it was enough to cause a shade, but it wasn't enough for him to actually, like, I mean, I guess he could have been dead, right? But he did come back because he could have transitioned. He could have crossed over.
As a clarification, I'd say that Dresden wasn't, like, he didn't have a shade running around. He just had his freaking soul running around. which was different.
Okay.
So like
he was just running out pure soul, no. I think somebody mentioned that pure soul, no protection or something.
And it's the same thing happened to Butters when the corpse taker was like trying to take Butters and Molly was fighting her. So there's a slight difference there in the fact that Deidre is actually dead, and that's a shade, whatever that means, whatever happens to them after that. So we could see Justin's corpse or ghost at some point.
Right. In a fantasy world, I mean, there's 100 ways where he could be technically dead. Like, I mean, Mavra's dead, right? But is she like, she's obviously still functioning. So is he maybe a lich? Is he some other kind of, corpsicle thing or whatever?
He was messing with outsiders.
Right.
Who knows what they can do.
So I choose to take Jim at his word, mostly because in my head and the way that he's adamant that it's dead, that he's dead, as opposed to, for example, saying I'm not going to tell you, which everybody's familiar with. Like I'd hate
to tell you.
Right. I'd hate for there to be a reveal like Abrams and Into Darkness, where like he told fans for a year that we're totally not doing Wrath of Khan, and then his character wasn't named Khan until he totally was halfway through the movie. And so I guess I choose not to believe, and you can hold on to it. And part of why this comes up is because one of the next guys we are going to talk about, maybe Justin, so, but there's a lot of misgivings in there. And I think there's a lot of evidence against it. And then of course like I said, my main thing is I'm going to take Jim at his word for now until it's canonized in a book, possibly even by this time next year, we'll know. So we'll all watch this episode and laugh at how ignorant we were.
I mean, there's even more caveats of like we might not ever see him in a present time, but there's obviously flashbacks like we got in Ghost Story, or any more vision backward type things. So it's like he might still be relevant even if he's actually gone and dead, whatever that means.
Right. Presumably, we still have a time travel book out there somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Last Law.
Right. Actually, isn't the Last Law, is that the one about the gates?
No, I didn't mean Last Law Chrono. That's the last one we hadn't broken yet.
Oh.
Well, I guess Dresden hasn't gone past the outer gate yet either.
Right. I honestly, by my count, I think we haven't broken them enough. Like, mostly in the sense, like, on a scale of, mental magic on Toot Toot versus, like, Sue. We have not had a Sue level loophole for nearly enough of the laws. So like you could probably argue some stuff about the fourth law, especially around changes. Like I would say, changes probably is a good one for that. We definitely got the first law out right out of the gate, presumably, and nearly repeatedly since, because you could probably make an argument about Asher, even though she was a coin bearer, and I don't know how that works into the whole mortals thing.
And for Asher, he used her spell against her. She's the one who killed herself.
Yeah, I mean...
That's his defense there. All he did was block himself.
Right. And I agree with that in a lot of ways.
This is against the laws of magic to, kill another wizard if they try to kill you.
No,
well, I know we kind of got part with the whole with Justin and everything,
right. But that's why it was the technicality.
If a full-blown wizard tries to take out another full-blown wizard and you kill them back...
Right.
What's the rule there?
So I think a couple of things are in play. So first of all, there's precedent for self-defense, right? However, the anti-Dresden camp, they didn't necessarily buy his defense. And that's why I think he was in as much trouble as he was, because it's like this punk warlock killed a standing warden who's been in service for at least 40 years, so that, and there were no witnesses, so it probably fully is like he only got away with it because Ebenezer vouched for him, and Ebenezer only vouched for him because he's grandpa.
Yeah.
Everything had to line up for that. Otherwise, but if it had been like a warden defending himself against somebody like Peabody, for example, then, the warden probably would have been questioned. There would have been some paperwork and he would have been put back on the job.
How did the warden? This is another thought I just got. How did the wardens kill bad guys before they got the swords? Because if they did it with magic, wouldn't that corrupt them, or wouldn't that be against the laws of magic?
I mean, they'd still be able to use any other form of weapon, like swords or staves or guns if they have them. Anything that's not actual magic, that'd also be acceptable.
It's like an additional thing they did before, like they do with the magic swords now. was like another kind of warden sword. No, it's just not magical. But everyone got one here. Take the katana. Here you go.
And it's possible, but I mean, we get the impression that it's rare enough that Lucio may be the only person to have ever done it. In the same vein that, like, we've only ever seen, magical automatons from ancient Mai. Like, there aren't a bunch of other artificers running around creating other, little magical things, at least not that we've seen on screen. And so, like, there seems to be some kind of innate talent there. And Injun Joe is clearly not the only healer, but he's the one that gets the FaceTime. And, he actually has a name. The rest are like, Dr. Crusher's staff, right? Like, they're there. And a couple of them might have names, but, mostly they just show up. And,
what's that a reference to?
The Next Generation. We've been watching it. So,
right. Dr. Crusher. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, of course.
Right. So, yeah, to tie it in then, I'm going to move us along a little bit. So, Am I jumping too far ahead if we talk about Cowl?
I don't think so. I think it's going to take up a lot of time.
Just talk. I don't think it matters.
Because I think the Cowl discussion branches quite a bit, and we semi-caught up / some of us perused the recent post in the subreddit where it was like, so let's assume Justin's still alive and he's also a good guy, and then go on a 3-page, like, what that makes the files look like. And it was a lot of thought put into theory, right? But I think that it kind of, misleads and is misinformed for some of that stuff and some of the QA stuff. So maybe not all of it was there, but like, if we say that Justin is Cowl, we've got multiple instances where Dresden meeting up with another practitioner, like, even with Cowl, he knew that the magic was familiar, but not necessarily like, oh shit, it's Ebenezer, like, or it's Justin DuMorne, or, whatever. And in a same vein with Kumori, which, for lack of more obvious suspects, I say she could easily be Elaine. But I personally, I'm still on the Cowl is Simon Petrovich train, because he could be familiar with him in the sense that, Ebenezer and Simon were really good friends. So it's like, 2 steps removed Kevin Bacon number versus like, oh yeah, you were my dad for like how many years and I don't recognize you,
Yeah, and then there's still the connection that, like, whatever there is between Ebenezer and Simon, because they were friends, is also from Simon to Justin to Harry. So he might recognize it that way, technically. Or if Simon is frickin' Cowl and blah, 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 blah.
Well, and because the other fun part, and because I'm a nerd, okay, so the line to Simon in a way, and possibly with Ebenezer thrown in there on the side, it's almost like the line from Yoda to the Sith, for example, because like Yoda taught Darth Tyrannus, he also taught Qui-Gon Jinn, and then Qui-Gon Jinn taught Obi-Wan, who taught Anakin, so forth and so on. So like you can
how
draw.
You refer to one guy by his Darth name, but not the Vader.
Well, yes, because Vader gets redeemed. I could make that argument, but you're right. You're correct. So we have.
That was the argument I thought you were gonna make.
Right, Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku. If you want to get both names in there, Anakin, Vader. Spoiler,
Dooku,
by the way.
I think Dooku is a more like easier recognizable name for people.
Possibly, but in Revenge of the Sith, I think he was definitely going by Darth Tyrannus, wasn't he? Or I don't know. I've only seen it once or twice.
He calls him Dooku, I guess, still.
Does he?
No, it's definitely Dooku. They use that name a lot more heavily.
Sure. So not to detract from it too much, it hasn't been ignored by me anyway that, so we've got the Merlin's line down through Ebenezer, and we don't know all the other masters that go back through there, and were they all the Black Staff or not, things like that. But we do have a pretty clear line that, Simon taught DuMorne, right? And DuMorne taught Harry. So there's some little lineup there. And so to me, it would be like, there's no way that Simon was a throwaway character, right? Any more than DuMorne was in an interesting way. But yeah, Simon, basically the only thing we know about him is that he ran this little place called Archangel in St. Petersburg, right?
No, Archangel, I think, is an actual place separate from St. Petersburg, in a place really northern in Russia. Like, you could just, I'll try to Google it, but like, just Archangel is a city. It's a temple.
Oh,
in Russia.
Archangel.
Right. Yeah, and it becomes Ebenezer's Alamo in a way, right? Because he uses it in changes as kind of like a battle cry. And I mean, Simon and Ebenezer and presumably Injun Joe and Martha Liberty, like, were all part of, like, they were all friends in a way, like old war buddies or something. And we don't know anything hardly about Archangel other than, it was an inside job, presumably. Somebody at least lowered the wards, if not, was more actively a part of it, which hopefully it was Peabody, but maybe there's even still more people running around. And so we know that they were kind of like a main research hub for, the White Council versus the Red Court. But I'm kind of guessing that's not the only thing that they were. So, like, maybe that was their, like, main monster hunting school or something. Like, I don't know. But it's kind of interesting. And otherwise, we basically get, like, this one kind of throwaway line that Simon wasn't he supposed to be the next on the senior council if he hadn't died? Or was he a senior counselor already? He was
on the senior council because in Summer Night, when they were trying to get Harry protected, Martha there, Injun Joe was there, and then he was like, "Where's Simon? Oh, he's dead. Sorry to let you know that."
Right. And he was a friend of Ebenezer's and so forth. And so we could basically otherwise get this one throwaway line. And it would make total sense to me that Cowl is Simon, so his magic is familiar because he taught DuMorne, and Harry knows Justin's magic. And so in that way, like, obviously it's tainted and it's necromancy and it's different. But I think your main options are either, maybe DuMorne is some kind of, lich type of thing, which is why Cowl's got a gravelly voice and whatever. But I really think it's probably Simon, which still, like, some of the vibes I get from Cowl could fit that. Like, I don't think he's doing the Batman thing when he shows up, but maybe we'll find out that's what he's doing. Is like, well, he's got the hood on, so now he's Batman instead of, Simon. Or maybe he did get burned, in his, because I guess the other piece is that, to clarify it in case it's been a little while, is that Simon presumably died defending Archangel because there was a death curse and, like, dozens of vampires were taken out, in this curse. So it's like the first time you really see a wizard of the White Council throw down.
I think there was supposedly multiple death curses that happened at Archangel.
Right.
So it was just a ton of destruction.
Right.
But, like, they never found a body.
Right. And that's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen this link you sent, so I'll have to take a look at that.
So it's like Archangel with Russian writing, so it's Archangelsk, but it's definitely, it's a city in really north part of Russia, which, like, I didn't ever heard of until, like, by accident. It's like, oh, that's totally what it's based on.
Probably, yeah. It looks like a freaking fortress.
It does, and apparently the city was named after because there's the Archangel Michael slaying the devil as a statue. It's just like, okay, that's what we're calling it. It's like, that seems a bit perfect.
Well, I mean, if you get there and there's already a statue of Michael, I mean, you got to call the town Archangel, right? So
yeah,
I mean, you gotta. Just like, that's it. Name done.
So it's something that keeps occurring to me lately is about Simon and Justin. Like, Justin was trying to do to Harry is trap him because, I mean, he knew all of his defenses. It's what he taught him everything. Is trying to enthrall him and make him a slave to whatever else he was doing. Simon could have done the same thing to Justin on the same basis. Okay. And so if Simon is Cowl, and then obviously messing with whatever is going on with the outsiders, then you have the same type of connection that you do everywhere else.
Well,
I actually think Cowl might be fighting against the outsiders. Maybe that the Black Council and Nemesis, that like the circle that Cowl was talking about might be separate. They might be really evil and bad, and they might do that because they want to fight Nemesis any means necessary. They know about Nemesis, but are not part of it.
Right.
It's just like a thought I've been playing with that I don't think I've seen talked about much.
Except, I'm pretty sure Harry stated in White Knight at the Deeps that Cowl was summoning an outsider right before the entire place exploded.
I don't remember that, if that's the case at all. I remember him opening the portal, which like leads to the Uberghoul Never Never.
Yeah, and but that it was something to do with the outsider that was doing that like terrible depressive state, right?
Right.
Yeah, the Skavis or whoever was doing it, he was like, he was being fueled
it was the
by
mental
an outsider.
Attack, and
yeah,
basically flattened everybody in the deeps, including Harry, and it took the shadow of a fallen angel to loosen it enough for Harry to do something.
Yeah,
you know. So
I just got the impression that it was like a super boosted Malvora thing. Like, not that they all can do it, but that it was super boosted. The fact that he was the one.
I think Harry was like pretty sure it had something to do with an outsider and why it was boosted.
I don't remember that, but I guess
I do remember a little bit about the outsider thing, and I kind of spaced it, but yeah, that's a good point. And so
at the same time, when Lash was doing her sacrifice, she also brought up Margaret again. Just a little hint, and then disappeared. So.
Right, because she said, like, I could tell you all about your mom, and then...
Yeah, she said something along the lines of, your mother prepared you for really important things, I have to die.
Right. So, you know how you've had one question the entire series? It was... You know. So...
I think that was like the fourth time they hinted Margaret.
Right. Well, yeah, because you got, Chauncey was one of the first ones where it's like, oh, I could tell you everything you want to know about your mom. We're good friends and whatever. The good friends is a little bit of embellishment. But anyway, like, he knows. And then Dresden's like, maybe, but maybe fuck you. And it could have been a trick. And then, then you have Lash. So those are two I can think of. I mean, obviously the Fano.
In Full Moon again, Harry... Harry also mentions it's like, oh, we have to talk. By the way, your mother, and he woke up. So that was a cutoff. And then there was this really weird moment at the end of Stormfront where Harry's like really broken and exhausted, and a woman helped him stand up and gave him some energy, and she's never described, never comes back. There's been a woman in a dream that says, no, you need to stop having a nightmare. You need to rest. And she disappears, and he's never described. And then there's all the talk of her in Blood Rights, but like then there was a lot more of the hints of she did something special.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it was like her death curse / she also did some bloodline magic with Thomas and Harry. Well, and she had tied her death curse to the same magic, and presumably. So
I don't think we've seen this mysterious woman since Harry and Thomas kind of did the thing and had like.
Yeah, the last I remember of that like mysterious woman thing was in Death Masks when he was having a bunch of nightmares.
And then, well, because at that point now she's not mysterious anymore; she's mom, right? So does he see her anymore after that? Because like I want to say like changes after he gets the gem. I guess maybe it's just the journal thing that I'm thinking. But
then there's the journals and all of her notes. But when he saw her in the Soul Gaze with Thomas, he never connected it backwards.
Right.
So it could be something else as well. Like it could be Leah doing something. It's just not confirmed.
Okay, that's an interesting topic. So we'll have to revisit that. So there is interesting things. Yes, I was going to bring up with Cowl, like to separate him from the conspiracy stuff for a little bit. Like, to me, his motivations, or at least him kind of showing up in White Knight, was like a little bit Deus Ex, but like after reading it, it kind of makes sense that he was, the Machination and the Black Council and whatever. But in Deadbeat, he and Kumori are always like a wild card to me, where their thing isn't fully understood, because they clearly seem to have studied under Kemmler and were clearly Kemlerites. They were his disciples.
Whatever. Studied under Kemmler.
Right.
I don't think Kumori has necessarily.
But then he goes on and he's like, well, the White Council's rotting from inside, and Kumori like saves a guy for no fucking reason and all these other things. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're about to do the Dark Hollow and you wait and raise one guy. So Kumori must not be in on the whole Dark Hollow thing. But how could she not be if she knows that he's a Kemlerite and she knows why they're fucking there?
I mean, there was that moment of her spouting philosophy of like, you can stop death, but it's basically you need to kill a bunch of people in order to have the power of a god to do that. And she thinks that is worth it, except for the fact that there's this weird cost benefit thing of, didn't you think that the guy you just spent a bunch of energy saving might also be killed in the Dark Hollow? Why'd you do that?
Right, right. Or, I mean, still, like, I'm going to save this guy who's a total stranger, but fuck the 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 of you guys who are also total strangers. But also, and I mean, that's a big part, and that's a big part of the question on Kumori, right? But also, like, Cowl straight up says the White Council is, you know, corrupt from within inside, and he doesn't think that he's fucking crazy, right? But he was a senior council member / Kemlerite / you know, like Black Council member, and he doesn't think he's one of the bad guys. Like, I know what Dresden says about morality and you don't wake up cackling and whatever, but he fucking followed a guy around raising mass graves in World War II and, you know, like murdering people and all this other stuff. Like, this isn't... I don't know.
Cowl and Kumori do seem separate. Like, okay, Gravane and Corpse Taker clearly embrace the fucking... terrible, I'm evil.
They seem way more Kemlerite to me than I ever got off Cowl.
Right, sure.
Yeah, and it's just that for at least for Kumori, she wants to like stop death and remake whatever it is. And if she's following Cowl, then maybe Cowl's also, and she also hints at having like a higher purpose. It's a calling or whatever it is, and that he might be trying to remake something in a better form. So if he thinks that that's worth it, then of course he's going to still think he's a good guy, whatever that is, and whatever his connection is to the outsiders. That's the confusing part.
Right. Well, and maybe he is infected, but we haven't. I don't think we've seen definitively that any mortals are infected with Nemesis, which has also been interesting. There's been some arguments because obviously, like the first 3 books, right? You had Kravos, you had Victor the Shadow Man, and you had the belts, right? But in my opinion, that's more somebody was giving them power than they were necessarily like the fairies are clearly infected and moving against their own like their own natural order, you know.
Well, there has to be a connection between Cowl and the outsiders because Cowl and Kumori were at Bianca's party that gave the Athame that infected Leah.
Right. All of that's there, but is it like it would make a little bit more sense that he sometimes acts against his nature and sometimes is totally unpredictable if like Nemesis was behind the wheel, because Cat Sith does the same thing, right? Cat Sith
all of the fairies that have been infected are aware they're infected, but we haven't seen anyone who wasn't a fairy that's been infected, right?
And that's kind of the open question, right? So because I could believe that. And I mean, I guess it's my own personal theory that it was more about the power for, you know, Victor, Kravos, and the FBI. Like the FBI, obviously, it was a drug for them as well, so there was something there. But it was all driven from the belts, you know. So it didn't seem as black and white to me as what we see with Leah, you know, even off screen, what we see with, you know, with Maeve and Cat Sith and whatever. You know, so the argument's still there, and it could just be that, you know, Jim hadn't decided fully, and maybe it, you know, Harry didn't know and whatever, and those are past books and whatnot. But you know, I find that interesting because to me, Cowl, there's like 2 different Cowls, right? There's like the benevolent, like I'm doing bad things for the right reasons Cowl, and then there's like I'm just the fucking Dark Lord Cowl, and that's the thing that I find hard to reconcile. You know, where it's just like, I'm totally cool. Like, you know, he almost killed Harry outright in attack. Right. And yet yet he's like senior council level and, you know, presumably, or DuMorne level or something. I don't know. There's just like all these things that don't quite line up with me, especially in Deadbeat. Like, you know, past Deadbeat, I think it's very easy to just say, okay, it's Darth Vader and he's the big scary bad guy and we'll see what actually happens later. But in Deadbeat, I feel like he and Kumori give us these 2 different competing viewpoints where it's like, I don't really know, you know, like if we take that into account, because even still, they had kind of like they held back in some way in the fight with Cowl or with Harry and Cowl on the street and some other things. Like Cowl showed up and brained him during the ritual, right? Where he was holding the Earl King and then left him there. And it's like, you know, that for all intents and purposes, he's got to throw a rock at your face during the Dark Hallow and it's going to fuck everything up, but you left him behind. Like, I don't know. So, and I mean, I've read them at least 3 times, if not 4 times, and Deadbeat still doesn't make sense to me for that regard, anyway.
I mean, and then
I still don't know why Cowl didn't just kill him.
Right. I mean, other than it would have killed the series, obviously, but still, like, there should have been some.
Other than he's the protagonist, and he's protected by the writer. But I mean, like, logically in the book,
yes, exactly.
Why didn't he just kill him there?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm making up a reason.
Okay.
Because, if he is in control of the outsiders, all of the outsiders that we have seen face to face have wanted to take him, not to kill him.
So, in other words, join me and together we'll rule the galaxy?
Something like that. Or, I don't,
but maybe outsiders also have politics and don't agree, and they need Harry to kill other outsiders or another Starborn?
And that's a really fair thing, right? Because we see them as the enemy, but if they're the living embodiment of chaos, chances are they're fighting each other just because fuck you, that's why, like.
I don't agree about how we're going to end existence.
Right.
God darn it.
So, I mean, if Cowl is infected or manipulated in some fashion, he could be making those decisions stupidly because you're not allowed to hurt him too much. Hurt him enough, but not kill him because we need him.
Because if you kill him, he won't learn nothing. Mm-hmm. But it does open up a tantalizing theory, something like maybe Harry is the key, right? They need him, they need the Starborn because sure, the Starborn can stop them, but he can also open the gates. Whereas like any mortal can call an outsider or maybe some outsiders, but maybe it takes the Starborn to like dissolve the walls, and open the gates to let them all in or something like that. I don't know. Like that could be interesting. So
yeah.
And now I've got like montages of like Harry being chained up and being tortured to like give in, and like the Scoobies have to come save him. So he's like not even an active participant in that, in that part. Yeah. He's just like, yep, I'm chained up. I'm the damsel in distress. How's that for changing the trope on you? So
if we're going to be talking about bad guys, we're just going to talk about the outsiders now. We've seen 2 of them. He Who Walks Behind and He Who Walks Before, Sharkface, otherwise.
Right.
And they do seem a little different in personality. Like He Who Walks Behind is almost like polished in the way that he acts.
Well, he was the British bad guy, right? So
was he British? I can't remember.
I don't know. It just seemed like he had an accent or whatever. So you were like, oh, he always speaks in proper English, and
he does seem that he's just like happily playing with Harry whenever he comes about, even when he's taking over Madge in the Deeps and Blood Rights.
Right.
He's just like, I remember you, and he also spoke with like these and thous in that part.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like he always seems like he's taunting Harry, but with Sharkface, he's like very upfront. It's like, you will come with me. Isn't that what Mab said?
Right. Yeah. Nice.
I read through the what was the best wise ass remark thread. It's just like, I have to say that now.
Right. So as far as individuals, those are the only ones, I mean, that we've really had named, other than the Sleeper, which we don't know a lot about in Cold Case. Okay. And you still haven't read Warcry, I'm taking it. So
I'm still working my way through Lovecraft. God damn, that thing is dense.
So let's just say there's an outsider in Warcry, and they obviously showed up at the Battle of Sicily and that ensuing, battle, for lack of a better word, or continuous running battle with the senior council, right? Because it was, it was the Merlin and Ebenezer, or was it Rashid and Ebenezer that were teamed up? But I forget. I mean, the Merlin was definitely involved in the raising of the ward. I forget who was helping him with it. But basically,
I think it was Ebenezer, because if that was the one that was described in Deadbeat, Harry immediately became worried about Ebenezer, so he had to have been there.
And I know that was part of it too, because Ebenezer was wounded, but he carried the fight because he's an ornery old bastard. And like, I remember Morgan talking about that. But yeah, so there were also outsiders involved there, but we don't know form, function, whatever, other than they're nasty motherfuckers, and mortal magic seems to mostly wash off of them. So it practically takes senior council level wizards to bring them down, or a concerted effort. So
there's also outsiders in proven guilty. It really, that's where Michael was off helping or trying to help people. And saved Lucio's little warden camp. Is that there was an outsider attacking?
Yeah. Ebenezer and some of the others stay back to fight them off while they come in, and then they come in last second. Yeah.
And in the car, Michael, which is confirmed for Harry. Yeah, they said something about an outsider, whatever it was.
Interesting.
But we don't know what it was.
Right, and that's the thing, because it's like I have just this much more than what's been brought up in the thing. So for those audio only, I'm holding my fingers about an inch apart, because there's only a couple of monsters from Lovecraft that we either get hinted at that there are outsiders, or that could be some of the same kinds of outsiders, but it's possible he just hasn't done it because Harry hasn't seen them, and therefore maybe there isn't a catalog and whatever, and maybe they don't have a name or something, but they get treated as this amorphous thing, but there are clearly individuals, and we really only have the two named ones, and then the third that was semi-named, implied. The sleeper was more like a title than the actual name, because hopefully everybody knows who that was, but we'll see, because it's still I'm 99% sure, but I don't think we'll see if Butcher actually does it. So.
Yeah, but
who's the sleeper?
Cthulhu.
Oh, right, yeah.
In my mind.
I know who Cthulhu is.
Because guess what? He sleeps until the stars are right. And, it was the first cathedral of the sleeper or something like that. And I was like, cathedral's an interesting name there, because if you Cathedral Cthulhu. I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping at straws there. Maybe I just want it to be true. But after he started bringing in tips like the Necronomicon and using outsiders and things like that in the series, I'm like, holy crap! What if Harry fights Cthulhu at the end? But it's like, no, that's not even big enough. There's going to be more.
Sidestep with the Necronomicon either.
We're definitely going to have just probably a series of Lovecraftian episodes as I'm making my way through the story.
Specifically made up in Lovecraftian lore, that's where it comes from originally. Or...
Yes, yeah. So the Necronomicon's the book of monsters, if I recall correctly, or is it the Book of the Dead? So probably Book of the Dead.
Book of the Dead, because Evil Dead.
I'm trying to think somewhere. Maybe I'm thinking the Lexicon Malos or whatever, but somewhere there was a book of monsters, which is different. But Necronomicon, Book of the Dead, written by the mad Arab Al-Hazred, which was killed by Rashid.
Yep.
And according to Lovecraftian lore, he was killed in AD 700 something. So there's some shenanigans involved there. Either we're going to have a
Necronomicon is in the Dresden verse, and Al-Rashid isn't the thing he says in the Dresden verse. Is Shop Smart and Kmart and Ash in the Dresden verse?
Well, there was.
Let's go with yes. I want it. I want him to run into.
Watch on Netflix. Then that is lore,
right?
There was that line on Changes when it's Molly was pointing out how vulnerable he was to the what's their faces, and he's like, it's like they're having a half-off sale in Harry Dresden, shop S Smart, which is totally a reference to one of those movies.
Yes. Yeah, Army of Darkness. So
okay, I haven't actually seen them. I just know of them.
Oh my goodness!
You haven't watched?
Okay,
Okay. Let me just preface this by saying, the number one, and I don't remember if this is the second one. Army of Darkness, is that second or third?
So it's technically the second one, but they did the first one twice.
Okay.
So
because the first one, from what I remember, is not great. It's an okay watch. Army of Darkness, though, is really good.
Right.
I'm sure I'll seen it at some point. Have you seen Princess Bride yet?
No, but I really want to.
Dude, all right, I'm out of here. I can't be a part of this podcast anymore.
I really want to. It's just one of those things I keep forgetting, but it's it's on the list of things I want to watch. You haven't even read Monster Hunter. What do you
If anyone out there is a benevolent benefactor, for a couple of $1,000, we'll get these guys a week in the cabin in the woods in the mountains, and we'll watch all these fucking movies and things that they don't get the rereferences to. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, that sounds great, actually. Sit and have like a movie marathon. Yeah,
right?
That's good.
Oh, man. I'm because I'm putting together the list in my head right now. So anyway, okay, so yes, we definitely need to do Lovecraft episodes. There are some things that I've caught. There are probably some things that I didn't catch because, like, I have friends that are definitely hooked into it better than I am, and I've been going through the stuff. But it's so huge to me, especially if you count the expanded mythos. So, I guess one of the last things we were talking about was the Al-Hazred thing, which is interesting because that means Rashid either had to muddle with time, or he's way fucking older than they've been pretending he is. Or
he said the never a lot
exactly.
Where time works differently.
Exactly. Like maybe on the wall he spends, a few thousand years there and then bebops in for a meeting every now and again. So yeah, there's a lot of questions there because if you take it, if both H.P. Lovecraft's, like if that timeline for Al-Hazred is correct and the Dresden Files are correct, they're shenanigans. Or it's not like we haven't seen a dude get killed like 6 times off screen. So if he, if whatever Kemmler's trick was, whether it's Horcruxes or necromancy or whatever, like if that's semi-common known and most of the bad guys do it, then maybe he killed him twice or something. I don't know. But they're definitely time travel shenanigans because I think I saw that there were like 2 death dates for the Mad Arab as well. But, so that one's word of Jim. The Necronomicon's actually in the files twice, I think. It's at least in... Is it in backup? Or maybe that's the one where it's implied in backup.
No,
but
and backup is when they're talking about the Stygians.
Right, so, and the Lexicon Malos. But I thought Bob and Thomas talked about the Necronomicon and being like, oh, so the White Council really fucked that up. And Harry was talking about it in the sense of watering it down.
Yeah.
And that might have been Blood Rights, or was that?
In Blood Rights and probably a couple other places, he mentioned that the White Council published the Necronomicon or had it published in order to make sure that the ritual would never work because there's too many people drawing on its power.
Right.
So, of course, they would do the same thing with the Stygians, and it would just keep them around longer, which is bad for Thomas and all the Venatori.
Right. Like, yeah, if you want them to be completely forgotten and therefore destroyed, really bad, And, we saw that work in a couple of places because the Brothers Grimm and that sort of thing, too. So, all from backup, I think, there as well. Is that
Brothers Grimm was also mentioned in Cold Days.
Okay, so there were 2 references for that. So that's the thing. It's like there have been little inklings about Dresden and the Lovecraft verse kind of crossing over for a while, and then it's just become more and more like he's not hiding it as much. Like to me, I mean, okay, he didn't say Cthulhu, but we got the sleeper probably in the Pacific Ocean. Like we're pretty much talking about Cthulhu. So I'm guessing he's either going to be in the kaiju book, or he's going to be like the whole point of the BAT is fighting the outsiders, probably all of them, because shit went really sideways and it's dramatic and scary and fun. So I don't know. Like I don't know if I want him to be the focus of it, but I have had that idea in mind for a long, long time that it's like somehow Harry's going to show down with Cthulhu, and since we're talking about outsiders. And I short-circuited your brain. I can see it.
I just remembered something. I really have to finish reading Lovecraft, and then I can confirm it's the conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to save that part. We should talk about another bad guy.
Okay.
There's so many. Well, which one should we talk about?
We're doing Dark Wizards, apparently.
Yeah.
So we're doing
that was the theme last time. So Peabody and all the crap he might have done or accomplished.
I mean, untold, like, hard to imagine, like, how much he actually might have fucked up. This is like, it's gotta really, like, boggle the mind of the senior council. He's like, man, you just had access to everything, and you had mind-altering ink. What did we do? Every decision I made
How old is that guy? How much was he in that position? How much did he have influence for?
Well, and the scariest part is, like, obviously he was one of the most well-connected, unless we also think of Simon as, you know, Cowl. But he's not the only one, you know, because two guys on the inside does not rotting from within make, you know, for the White Council. But it's really easy to be like, oh, good thing we totally got the guy, right? But it's like, no, there's probably more. And I guess we see that in, is it Christos? That we're pretty sure he's either at least grossly incompetent, if not, you know, totally on the inside.
Christos,
so. He's the either scarily stupid
asshole of the senior council.
Right.
Yeah. Either scarily stupid or actually malicious in some fashion.
Right.
I'm kind of betting on the stupid part, honestly.
Well, and it's possible, right? Because was he the one where they were like, "Oh, stupid, scarier every time"? Was he that conversation?
Scary every time, Hoss.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm stupid every time, Hoss.
Right. Because like Lafortier was just a dick, right?
Yeah.
But clearly he wasn't one of the bad guys because, you know, they offed him. So he was apparently everybody's pain in the ass. And then Christos is at least criminally stupid, if not actively against them. So anyway, so Peabody, you know, we know for a fact he did the ink thing. He was the writer of the, Earl King book, collection of poems, and, you know, a handy summoning ritual, which it's like, do you think he knew when he did that? Or was that an accident? You know, was that still back when he was a good guy, or, you know, was he ever a good guy? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, crap. You could probably look up probably Bob mentioned that Delete de Earl King was published at some point, self-published, and then like people were trying to hunt it down. And then there's an odd connection between Cowl, Komori, and Peabody, possibly, in the fact that Cowl and Komori felt very certain they could get the ritual without the book, because Komori was satisfied with just destroying the version that Harry had.
Correct.
And if they have the connection to the White Council and Peabody is there, they could get it from him.
Well, even past the White Council, though, Black Council, like, we know Peabody was Black Council, and Cowl is pretty much Black Council, aka the Circle is what he calls it. Yeah. So either the Circle is yet another organization, and the Black Council is, you know, another organization, or they're the same thing, which is just a little simpler in my mind. But yeah, so that's kind of interesting, and it's a good thing you bring up the whole, you know, they mostly just wanted to destroy it, and yet still make efforts to go kidnap Bob to have him handy during the ritual, which is what it turns into. Is like, oh, well, they've got Bob, so they don't need the book.
Yeah, and actually, Count Komori almost entirely ignored the Earl King. He let the Earl King go, but then they weren't trying to actually control him during the Dark Hollow.
He just wanted the spirits to be around so they could, you know,
suck
him in.
Right.
They weren't trying to overpower him in any way.
Well,
I don't think that was ever the plan.
Yeah, they talk about anyone needed to summon him. So that was the thing. And Harry just did it for them. And so the fact that the Earl King is in Chicago was good enough, I think. Yeah. So, and then presumably, like, the Dark Hollow, like, it seemed like there was going to be a non-trivial radius of actual life that was lost, you know, and that was where at least thousands of people were going to die. But for spirits, it seemed like it was a bigger phenomenon, right? Because I caught it this time around. I'm not sure I caught it before, but they had talked about potentially all the way back to Kravos and Grave Peril, that the whole spiritual turbulence was also a factor into it. So that Chicago had spiritual turbulence recently, and they were going to summon the Earl King, and they did the ritual on an ancient Indian burial ground, and, you know, like, they had 4 or 5 things stacked up. Because one of the things that had kind of bugged me just a little bit in my first read-throughs was they talked about how it took us freaking years and all this preparation to do it. And then from our perspective, we see it's like, no, dude, that was like 2 days tops. Like, you just showed up, you did a hex on the entire city, which is probably non-trivial, but it happens off screen. And for all we know, it's repeatable. So even after he stops Cowl, why doesn't Cowl just show up again later, you know, and do it? Because now Cowl doesn't have like half of why it didn't happen is because they were fighting each other. And so 2 of the Kemlerites are out of the picture now, even though, you know, we know Corpse Taker was still running around, obviously, but she wasn't going to be able to stop him. So that always kind of bugged me. But like watching it this time, like they do put in little one-liners about some of their, you know, like having to get things just right or having to get the edge, you know, instead of just showing up and doing a ritual is what it seemed like when I read it the first time. So
yeah, it might have been smarter to go about it as like just use that instance of Deadbeat to kill the other 2 Kemlerites and then do the ritual the next year.
Right.
Because obviously they wanted it on Halloween, but they could have had an entire year to make it turbulent and to get rid of Harry or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because it's like, fine, okay, you know, a lot of the prep happened off screen and who knows, and they even talk about, like Harry talks about how he was tracking them through the dark magic hotspots, right? And so they were preparing the way, and that's one of the things too.
Oh, I remember now. They kind of mentioned it at the end of Deadbeat, the wards. In order to get past the wards, it seems like the Outsiders and the Red Court had a deal. And that's why they were coordinating that night, was that when the Merlin put up the wards, they were so powerful you'd need to essentially be a god to break it down.
Right. Well, so that's Edinburgh, right?
Yeah.
But I like where you're at, though, because that's probably one of the other things is that I never directly tied in the fact that literally they were in the middle of presumably wiping out the White Council, but at the very least tying them up so they couldn't interrupt the ritual.
Yeah.
So that only 4 showed up. I mean, 5 counting Dresden. So because we had
Ramirez, Warden, Yoshimo,
right, and Kowalski.
Oh yeah, Kowalski.
Like red shirt.
My boy Kowalski.
Yeah, like
red shirt.
Yeah, like I'm sorry if your name's Kowalski, but I mean you could almost feel it when Dresden or like whoever lists off who they brought. It's like so we've got, you know. Yeah, when they just list them off and it's like, and then Kowalski, and I'm like, he's not going to make it. You can just feel it. Like, he's a goner. So
it's just like...
Was he wearing a red shirt?
Right.
Well, red with blood, maybe?
Yeah.
Because they were already injured.
Right. Okay, so Peabody. Do we have more to say about Peabody? Because we're getting, you know, to an hour, so...
Just like... what Harry said, no one who has a clean and neat office as a temple of tidiness can be a good guy. Right?
Let that be a lesson to you people. So you see all my clutter, totally a good guy. I'm on the good side. I feel like,
Jim might have been projecting. Has anyone seen his office?
No, actually.
I haven't either, but I'm gonna guess a little messy. Either that or really neat and he's trying to tell us something.
Right.
They also mentioned that in Codex Alera, I think Tavi was really like, you know, normal amount of teenage boy untidiness, and then he got forced into the military. It's like, what is this all neat shit?
Right. But, so apparently there are some subconscious things he's channeling there.
Yeah, apparently Tavi goes to the military. No one know that.
Yeah. It's like the first thing in the second book, so it's not really a spoiler.
He's like,
third.
Okay, spoiler alert for people who don't want to know. He's like training to be a secret agent.
So, in the second book, he goes to the academy, right?
Second book, he goes into the academy.
Oh,
third book, he's forced into the military.
Okay. And the academy wasn't for the military?
To be like everyone thinks he's just like a useless thing, except his teacher, who has like these students who are apparently training to be, you know, like hand of the king, secret assassin agents types or something.
Now who's spoiling shit? Seriously.
That's why I said spoilers before I said it.
Oh, okay. You weren't calling her out. You were warning people. So
I read the second book and third book.
No, I read part of it. I got a couple chapters in, and then I couldn't stand the narrator anymore. And I'm sorry. Like, I know some people like her and everything, but after riding Marster's training,
she's like they're like a team. Her and her husband, and her husband is actually really good. I like him a lot. He reads the Way of the Kings. He reads what's it called? Mistborn, I think, also.
Okay.
I think Direct Alex is nodding.
I think so. I don't know. I read the books, without having to listen to
That's
them.
Ridiculous.
How do you have time for that?
Well, I used to have time. I don't anymore. That's why it's taking me fucking months to get through Lovecraft.
Also, Lovecraft is thick, so
yeah, I really like her husband. I think they're good. He's good. Not a big fan of her.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, as Peabody said, the end is nigh of the podcast.
End is nigh!
Once in a while, I can do it. So, plug all of our stuff so we can end this Christmas naughty special. I don't know.
My
cleverness.
How many more do we have on the list? Do we need to do another part? It was fun. It was actually kind of interesting.
I'm sure
it was like brainstorming about bad guys.
Yeah, there's loads more bad guys. So we only got through the Dark Wizards and really half of them. I mean, in a way. So there's your podcast, right?
Yeah,
with High Fantasy,
where we will argue about Sanderson.
So apparently that's what that's about. There's Dangerous to Go Alone, which is about nerd and geek culture. There's the Great Scott podcast, which is about The Office. There's us, and then we've got the Long Haul on here. But have they been doing episodes? Like they're kind of still listed on our active thing, so that's why I keep mentioning them.
Yeah, we kind of need to check up on that. I don't really know the guy who's a friend of Jacob's, but then Jacob mentioned a few days ago he and Ryan might start a new one about book clubs, or like reading a book and talking about it like a book club. So
I love that idea, actually. Maybe I should. I don't know if they're going to read books I want to read.
Right. Well, and it's like I never like doing the book club thing because it's like we're going to do this book. It's like I have no interest in reading that book, and then the second thing right behind that is I can't read. Oh wait, I just take for freaking ever to read it. So it's like if you got to keep pace, it seems like
about sitting down and like discussing books. That's not all about Dresden, but like sitting down discussing a book. It could be like discussing our favorite books or whatever, and like trying to sell them to each other. Mm-hmm. But I just don't. I don't want to read a book like that I'm not interested in reading. That's the only problem I got with it as well.
I'm sure if they ever do a book that's interesting, I mean, if they're going to be doing a book club, they got to do Dresden at some point, right? I mean, they're Dresden fans. That's how we made this network.
We can't monopolize the whole network. It's okay for people to talk about other things on their podcasts. So.
No, it's not. Only Dresden. Okay, maybe not.
Well, so at some point that will happen, and maybe we'll come up with a snappier name for it. I don't know. But that's it for now, I think.
Yay. Goodbye.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Bye for now. Wait. No, don't close. End of year special.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We're doing that. We're recording it on this upcoming Saturday, December the 30th. Hopefully it'll be up pretty much soon after that, but I don't know in terms of who's going to actually be recording it. So, okay, but we'll be doing the Secret Santa stuff then.
Yay.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, the person I got put it up so late, it might not arrive.
Oh.
We'll see.
Ooh. Yeah, shipping times in this time of year is bad.
Right. Well, we'll hope. Okay, for real's goodbye
Christmas.
this time.
Bye-bye.
For real's goodbye.